All right, welcome to our 7th unit, which is over Chapter 8, Physical Development in the First Year of Life. The essential question of this unit is how do babies grow and make great advances in their motor skills, and how do parents and other caregivers provide everything babies physically need? So you should be able to understand that by the end of this unit. All right, our first section is growth and development in the first year, and it's kind of long, so prepare yourself. After this unit, you should be able to describe a child's physical growth in the first year, including giving examples of organ maturation and skeletal growth, compare and contrast their different types of reflexes, differentiate between gross motor skills and fine motor skills, as well as explain the order in which a child's motor skills develop in their first year, and give examples of physical developmental milestones children might achieve in their first year. Physical growth and development during the first year of life is exciting because children grow and develop new skills each day. Of all the changes that occur during infancy, physical growth is the most noticeable. Parents and others remark, "Look how he or she has grown." Growth occurs both outward, like height and weight, and inward, like tissue and organ growth. A person's physical growth may continue until the early years of adulthood. This growth period is longer than that of any other living creature. From birth, infants make great physiological adaptations. They change from being helpless newborns to being up and about infants in their new world outside the womb. These adaptations occur due to their impressive advances in motor skills. Development proceeds in two different directions, from head downward and from the center of the body to their extremities, which are your fingers and toes. Through biological maturation and experiences in the first year of life, the infant's world becomes the most accessible. As you may recall, from birth to 1 month of age, a baby is medically known as a neonate or a newborn. Between 1 month and 1 year after birth, a baby is called an infant. The stage of development during the first year of life is known as infancy, which is a vocab word. Much physical growth and development occur during infancy. At birth, a newborn looks much different from the plump, beautiful infants you see in the media who are usually several months old. Besides changes in physical traits during the first year, changes also occur in maturation of the organs and skeletal growth. Some examples of changes in their appearance between birth and 6 months of age is a newborn eyes are dull gray blue, their stomach protrudes, their pelvis and hips are narrow, their legs are drawn up, their skin is blotchy and some blood vessels are visible. They have a protective cheese-like covering over them called a vernix caseosa. At 3 months, their eyes are able to produce tears. They are round and chubby. Their body and limbs begin to stretch out, and their head is very large compared to their body. By 6 months, their eyes begin to work together. Their eye color develops. They have rapid increases in the length of their body, and their chest becomes larger in circumference than their head. The brain grows faster than any other tissue or organ in the child's body during the first year. Most neurons develop during the prenatal period, but fine-tuning occurs during infancy. The neurons will increase in size, you'll get more glial cells, more dendrites develop, and myelination continues to speed up the connections, which we talked about all of this in our second unit, so hopefully it's a review. The brain weighs 1 pound at birth, and it weighs 2 pounds by 1 year of age, so they double their brain size. You will learn about specific areas of brain growth as we talk about intellectual development in our next unit. Newborns are born with a complete set of immature muscles. During infancy, muscles increase in size through physical activity and through hormones. The infant's strength and their ability to continually do something, or stamina, increase with muscle development. After birth, the child's digestion is aided by friendly intestinal bacteria, increased stomach size, and salivation. So that means, spit. During the first year, the digestive system is immature still. You can see evidence of this by babies frequently spitting up partially digested food and seeing partially digested foods in your baby's poop. As a child's lung capacity increases and the lungs mature, their breathing rate decreases. This decreased breathing rate does not negatively affect oxygen transfer to their bloodstream. Like newborns, they still breathe from the diaphragm in the abdominal area rather than from the chest like adults. Infants' lung tissue is very vulnerable to virus, bacteria, and pollution, which includes secondhand smoke, so do not smoke around babies. Newborns' hearts are immature but improve in strength throughout infancy. The pumping of blood becomes better regulated, which helps lower their blood pressure. During the first year, the heart becomes a lot stronger, which gives children more stamina or the ability to keep doing something for longer. The skeletal system is the framework of the body and consists of cartilage, bones, and teeth. Skeletal growth refers to the changes in the child's length and weight, their body proportions, and bones and teeth. Okay? A child's length and weight change quickly during the first year. The term length is used in the first year because the child does not stand. Once the child stands, then we say height. Changes happen so quickly that even people who see the child daily are amazed at how fast he or she grows. As children grow at different rates, but they do grow at different weights, but the average weight length of a newborn is 20 to 21 inches or so. Many children increase their birth lengths by about 30% in the first 5 months. They often grow 9 to 10 inches and almost triple their weight during their first year. Usually males are slightly longer and heavier than females by about 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 pounds by 1 year of age. Around 9 months, an infant is rather chubby because there's an increase in fat tissue under the skin. After this time, fat tissue begins to decrease. Even at this early age, males have more muscle length and thickness while females have more fat. A child's rate of growth is more important than their actual length and weight. The pediatrician uses a growth chart to record the child's growth at each checkup. This chart shows several measurements for a child compared to average growth rates. The pediatrician will compare the child's actual measurements to the growth rates. As long as the growth continues at a constant rate and it follows the curve, then the pediatrician will not be concerned. Sometimes, however, they may experience a failure to thrive, which means they fail to grow at a healthy rate. A child's failure to thrive may indicate a health condition exists. And we'll talk about failure to thrive a little bit more in a minute, but we're going to move on to body proportions. Okay, a child's body proportions is the relative size of their body parts, and they differ from an adult during the first year. For example, an infant's head is about 1/4 of their total length, while an adult's head is 1/8 of his or her total height. An infant also has a very tiny jaw and chin, a very long trunk, and a pot-bellied abdomen with short legs. More than half of the total growth of a child's head occurs during the first year of life. The head circumference, which is the linear distance around the edge of a closed curve or circular object, grows from an average of 13.5 to 18.5 inches in the first year. From birth until 6 months, the child's head is larger than the chest, but in many 6-month-old children, the chest becomes larger. Okay? The difference is the distance around the chest as compared to the distance around the head continues to increase with age. A child's gain in length during the first year is because their trunk grows. The legs do not grow much longer at this time. The abdomen protrudes or sticks out because their internal organs are large for their very small body. Because the center of gravity is high, the result is that they have poor balance. So with failure to thrive, the growth chart would show a steady growth rate and then a decline. Possible causes of failure to thrive include diseases that prevent all or some nutrients from being absorbed or that causes nutrients to be quickly expelled from the body, insufficient nutrients in the baby's food, diluted formula or really poor quality or insufficient amount of breast milk caused by mom's malnutrition, so mom being malnourished, which we call marasmus. Infrequent or short feeding times, abuse or neglect, where the baby is not held, touched, or talked to enough. With proper care and attention, the child's health can be restored. How long this takes depends on the beginning and the severity of the problem. All right, so bones and teeth. At birth, newborns have fontanelles, or soft spots, where the skull is not closed. Fontanelles enable the baby's skull to compress while passing through the birth canal. They also allow the skull and brain to grow. The fontanelles fill with bone as the skull grows. The skull completely closes in about 2 years. A baby's skeleton is mainly made of cartilage, which is a firm but flexible connective tissue found in parts of your body, like in your nose. Okay? Some of the baby's bones are made entirely of cartilage, while others are partially made of cartilage. There are large spaces between the baby's bones to help joints bend easily without breaking. Young babies can suck their toes with no trouble, but sitting and standing are impossible because their cartilage will not support it. Their skeletons are not sturdy. Due to their softness, a newborn or infant's bones can easily become misshapen. For example, the soft bones of a newborn skull can be molded into an egg shape to make birth easier. The molded shape of the head will disappear in a couple of weeks. We call it a cone head. A misshapen skull can also result from lying in one position all the time, causing an infant's head to flatten in one place. This has become more common in recent years with the need for babies to sleep on their backs for safety reasons, which we'll learn about later. Severe head flattening can be prevented by changing the position of the sleeping baby's head from day to day, but do not take the baby off his or her back. Take an alert baby out of the crib. Use baby seats, bouncers, or swings for only a little while at a time. Remove a sleeping child from a car seat when you're not traveling. Use tummy time or time spent on the stomach several times a day when babies are awake. Move objects of interest to encourage the baby to look from side to side when on his or her back. And encourage the infant to sit with support around 3 or 4 months. So hold your hand a short distance behind their head to provide head support if necessary. During the first year, 3 changes occur in the child's bones. First, the length of the bone increases. Second, ossification, which is the hardening of bones caused by the depositing of the minerals calcium and phosphorus, begins. Ossification helps the skeletal frame become sturdy, which in turn helps the infant to sit and eventually walk. Third, the number of bones changes. For example, a baby's body has 300 bones at birth. These eventually fuse together to form the 206 bones that adults have. Some of a baby's bones are made entirely of cartilage, while others are partially made of cartilage. During childhood, the cartilage grows and is slowly replaced by bone with help from calcium. Teeth, a part of the skeletal system, begin forming in the 6th week of prenatal life. At birth, all 20 deciduous teeth, also called baby teeth, and a few permanent teeth are developing deep in their jaw. Deciduous teeth are the first set of teeth, which will later be replaced by permanent teeth. The deciduous teeth may begin appearing during the second half of the first year. The order of teething is easier to predict than when teeth will appear, which is the timing. In fact, some newborns are born with 1 or more teeth. Other children are more than a year old when their first teeth appear. So what do you think? Is it important to practice healthy dental hygiene for teeth that are going to be replaced by permanent teeth at a later date? When should you first take your baby to the dentist? Well, the answer is about a year old. And yes, it is important. All right, time to talk about babies' reflexes. They enter the world with some natural reflexes, which are automatic unlearned movements in response to stimuli, a vocab word, needed for survival. For example, the rooting reflex helps newborns search for food by turning their heads and moving their mouths in response to a touch on the cheeks or mouth. After finding objects with their mouths, they begin to suck. Newborns also come in the world with the palmar or grasping reflex, which enables them to automatically grasp objects that are placed in their hands. Some reflexes, like the rooting reflex, disappear within a few months, while others remain the same throughout life, such as your knee jerking when tapped with a mallet. Still, other reflexes lead to learned voluntary behaviors essential for development. For example, when they're about 4 months old, the grasping reflex is replaced by voluntary grasping, a vocab word, which is the intentional grasping of objects. Babies' first grasps are crude, but with practice, they refine their skills as they learn to grab and hold many different objects. Reflexes are a clue to the health and maturity of the nervous system. The absence or weakness of a reflex may result from premature birth or a congenital condition. For example, pricking the soles of newborns' feet causes them to jerk or withdraw their legs, which we call the withdrawal reflex. The withdrawal reflex continues throughout life, and its absence may be a sign of brain damage. Reflexes that should disappear in time but do not disappear may also signal a problem. We will look at videos of the different reflexes in class. Hey, motor development, a vocab word, is the use and control of muscles that direct body movements. Children develop gross motor skills, a vocab word, as they learn to use and control large muscles, the trunk, arms, and legs, to roll over, sit, crawl, stand, and walk. Being able to control the small muscles, such as those in the fingers and hands, lead children to develop fine motor skills. Having control over the body is a sign of children's growth and development. A child's motor skills develop in 3 main patterns that build on the order of brain development. The following list is going to show the patterns of motor development. 1. Until brain firings are hardwired, babies move slowly because they have to think as they move. 2. Babies' reactions develop from general to specific. For example, in young infants, if they see something they want, they wiggle all over. Older infants smile and reach for the object. 3. Motor development occurs in 2 directions, from head to foot and from the center of the body to the extremities, from the spine area of the trunk to the hands and feet. Head to foot development, which we call cephalocaudal development, describes the progression of development beginning with the head that moves down to the feet. Cephalocaudal development begins before birth. The fetus's head develops first, then arm buds, then leg buds. At birth, newborns have well-developed facial muscles, but less well-developed leg muscles. During infancy, children develop head and neck control more quickly than leg and trunk control. So with head and neck control, Newborns need to have their heads continually supported because their muscles are not strong enough to hold their heads steady themselves. Some newborns can raise their unsteady heads briefly, however, when lying on their stomachs during supervised tummy time. By 2 months, many spend a great deal of time with their heads raised. Between 3 and 4 months of age, they can hold their heads and chest up by using their arms for support. Head control is complete when they are about 6 months old. By this time, they can raise their heads briefly while lying on their backs. They can also hold their heads steady while sitting in a high chair. Trunk control. The control of the trunk develops more slowly than control of the head. Infants placed on their stomachs can lift their heads before they can lift both their heads and chests. Trunk control enables them to develop motor skills such as rolling over and sitting. Infants often learn to roll over between 2 and 5 months of age. Usually, they first learn to roll over from stomach to back. Then, about a month later, they learn to roll over from back to stomach. They have an easier time lifting their heads and trunks while lying on their abdomens than while lying on their backs. Learning to sit takes several months. Infants must first gain strength in their necks and backs and be able to control their heads. They can sit briefly with support, being held or with pillows placed at their backs at 3 or 4 months of age. By 7 months of age, they can often sit for a short time without support. For longer periods of sitting, they lean forward and support themselves with their arms and legs, but may topple over if they are distracted. Progress is rapid during the next few months, and by 9 months, many infants can sit unaided with no support. Leg control is the last phase of head to foot development. As they gain leg control, they usually go through the stages of crawling, then creeping, then standing, then walking. Crawling happens around 5 or 6 months of age. They learn to crawl by pulling with their arms, but not lifting their abdomens from the floor. The common term for this is belly crawling. Creeping happens between 6 to 8 months of age. They learn to creep by lifting their abdomens off the floor and using their hands and knees and feet to move. The common term for creeping is knee crawling. Then it's standing. Around 6 months of age, they enjoy standing as they push with their feet and bounce while parents provide support by holding them underneath their arms. A few months later, they can pull themselves into a standing position and hold on to something else for support. Many children first learn to stand alone between 12 and 14 months of age. Lastly, walking. After they learn to stand alone, they usually begin to cruise. Cruising is walking by holding on to something for support. As leg control develops, they can stand further away from objects and hold on with only one of their hands to maintain balance. They also take a few cautious steps between objects and people. Around 15 months of age, many children are able to walk alone. So, I want you to think about, how do you think tummy time impacts the development of their head and neck muscles during the first year of development? The direction of development from the center of the body to the extremities is called proximo-distal development, or center to extremities development. In center to extremities development, control begins with the trunk, then arms, then hands, then fingers. This control extends to the hips, then legs, then feet, then toes. Center to extremity development aid infants' abilities to move about. For example, as they use their arms and hands to crawl and creep, and as a balancing aid for standing and walking. For the most part, however, center to extremities development aids in the performance of fine motor skills. These skills begin with the palmar reflex and are soon followed by voluntary swiping at objects. With time and experience, babies soon begin to grasp objects and even their own feet with their palms and fingers, but not with their thumbs. Near the second half of the first year, they begin using their thumb and finger with greater and greater skill until they can hold small objects between the tips of the thumb and the index finger. These grasping skills aid hand manipulation. So there are different types of hand manipulation. At 2 months, they can do rotation. They twist their wrists to look at an object from different angles. At 3 months, they do translation. They move objects closer to and further away from the face. 4 months is vibration. They shake and wave objects. 5 months, they can do a two-handed hold where they hold an object with both hands. They can do a bilateral hold, which uses both hands to explore objects. 6 months, they use hand-to-hand transfer where they pass one object from one hand to another. They can use coordinated action holding an object, so they can hold an object with one hand and use the other hand or finger to pull an object apart. At 8 months, they use coordinated action with 2 objects, so they can hold 2 objects, one in each hand, and then they coordinate movement with that, like banging the 2 objects together or stacking them. And then deformation, they use their hands to crush, tear, or flatten a malleable object like Play-Doh. By 9 months, they could do sequential actions. So they can use both hands to perform a sequential action, such as one hand raises an object and then the other hand pulls out the object below. Developmental milestones are physical, intellectual, and social emotional tasks many children learn to accomplish by a certain age. They identify age approximations for when children, on average, can demonstrate certain growth in developmental tasks. Each child develops at their own rate, however. The rate is affected by heredity, nutrition, illnesses, and activity. Whether a child is praised and encouraged, which is their environment, can also make a difference. Some infants develop more quickly than the age norm, while others lag behind. A particular infant may also develop quickly in one area, but more slowly in another. For example, learning to creep is a developmental milestone of 7-month-old infants. Some infants will learn to creep later, though. Physical developmental milestones concern the development of gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Many researchers classify these skills as postural, locomotor, and grasping skills. Postural skills have to do with aligning the body in an erect position and maintaining the position through balance. Postural skills also include holding the head erect, sitting erect, and standing erect without leaning or support. Locomotor skills involve the ability to move from place to place using the arms, legs, and feet. Locomotion includes rolling over, crawling, creeping, and walking. Grasping skills have to do with small movements of the hands, wrists, and fingers and often require the use of the eyes to coordinate movements. Examples of grasping skills are picking up, carrying, and manipulating small objects. All right, that is the end of section 1. Thanks, guys.